my screen? Yesterday we were talking about classes and objects. So we just had discussion about a simple program about what is class, what is object, how to define class, how to create object, and we did a quick debugging of the program. Today I'll just give a bit of postmortem on this classes and objects, and then we jump to the next topic, probably parameter passing, and then also we'll just add a little bit of logic to the one we are doing, and then also what we do, we see how to create multiple objects and also how to create array of objects. All that we try to discuss step by step. Okay, let's do that, friends. Let's go ahead with yesterday's discussion. So now we are talking about, we are discussing about this program, about item program, and then how to define methods, how to define variables, instance methods, instance variables, and how to access them outside class. If it is inside class, we can directly access them, one method in another method. If it is instance, generally we use self dot something, that's all. If it is inside. If it is outside, we should use that object reference dot or object. Maybe I'll just show you one more scenario. So, but this is not recommended. So we don't generally use this, whatever we are doing now. So one way of accessing members of classes by creating object and using reference. Second is, so this is like you can directly use object. You can say object dot, you can see here, object dot set item. So, and then similarly, and you see here, you can see something you can call like this, but the object dot get item. Let's run this. Right click and run this program. Where am I calling name here? Okay, because it should be, because I am calling this like this. Yeah, should be fine, no problem. Suppose if you call set item will definitely should work. Let me run this. Till this should work. And you can see when I call this, see here, let me debug this. I'll just show you. This is like just calling something from a class directly using object. So this is like an instant way of calling members of a class, but this is not recommended, but just showing you, even this is also allowed in Python, not just Python, in any programming language. So now if you see this, you just try step into. Okay, let's run this now. This is a method call, right? Let me try step into. It has to get into that level. What happened? It has. Again, let me try to debug one more time. So this should, when we are calling set item, when we call set item, step, let's apply step into. Somehow it is, because this is an instant call, right? There is another, I can show you a simple method. Yeah, just add print here. Do one thing. Just add a print. This is just to show you that this method is called. Okay. Run this. So you can see that. See, this is test is being called. That means what is the meaning of that symbol? So this set item is called here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, yeah, that's perfect because we are seeing output for 2 times. We do one thing. We'll stop calling this. Let's comment this. because just to give you that clear picture, we'll do one thing. Comment this, comment all these lines. Now run this. So that gives more clarity. See, this is test is being called, right? So because we have only one print, suppose you do one thing. Let's try to add a few more prints here. Copy these print statements from here. So copy all these prints, paste it in the same set item method, and then run it now. Now you can see that. So this is what you can see this. This is another way of calling or accessing members of a class. You directly using object. Here we are using object directly. But this is not recommended because once this execution is completed, this whole the method as well as objects, everything will be become unreachable. So they become garbage collected. So we don't have further access to this object or method or data of that. So that's why always this is the best approach. Creating object and accessing through object reference is the best approach, friends. Okay, but I'm showing you in certain cases just to quick testing, just for quick testing, we can also call members of a class using object directly. This is object. Got it now? Of course, you can call get items, but this set item is called, it creates object and add data to the object. And once that is done, that printing happens, then immediately that gets unreachable. Now, once this we call get item, then what happens is, so we are trying to invoke name, price, and quantity. But if this name, price, and quantity must be displayed, must be printed, before that, that object must be there in memory, and that instance variables should be created inside that object. But whatever we do at line 30, so this is just a temporary setup. This is just an instance setup. This just creates object, calls set method, loads data, prints that data then and there itself, and then it's just become unreachable. Okay, then when I call get item, see here, you get error. Why? It says that somewhere you should see here. Item object has no attribute name. We are trying to call name. It is saying I am not able to find name. Why? Either that item object don't exist. If you are calling item object, on item object you are calling get item. If get item should get data from the object, before that, that data must be created inside that object. And who does that job? Set item. But what is this doing here? This is just doing a temporary job. Temporarily setting object, and this object is not assigned to any external reference. If object don't have external reference, then after that instance, that object becomes unreachable. If object should be reachable, then such object should have external references. This is very important point, friends. So just giving you more deeper information. So anyhow, this is also another way of accessing members of class, but this is just an instant purpose, but this is not recommended all the time. So, but I am just showing you this is also a possible way just to give you an alternative approach. But whatever I just uncommented, this is the recommended one. So that this object has an external reference here. As long as the external reference exists to this object is not garbage collectible, and we also have access to this object. And so that we can call any method or anything on this object whenever we want it again and again. We can repeatedly call with this reference, either these methods or set item we can do it for one time. This is like doing initialization, object initialization. And if you just do that initialization for one time, then that data exists inside that object, so that we can invoke that data from object any number of times. Let me just show you a quick postmortem of this program here. So now let me open a paint. So I'm trying to give you a little bit. So now let me open this. See here. So what is happening? We'll just go line by line. So we are creating object. This is the program we have seen here, class item. And how many methods are there? One method to initialize, to declare and initialize instance variables. And you know very well from yesterday's class. What is instance variables? Any variables declared with self or instance. And these are created inside object. And what are instance methods? Methods which are called on object reference or object directly are instance methods. Generally, they are declared inside a class, that too with self keyword. Simply simple. So we have that. Now, what happens here when we create this? I'll give you a very clear analysis step by step. Okay, with paint. Okay, let me just show you here. See, you just created object. What is that? You say item one equal to item. What happens here when this line is executed? Internally, what happens is in memory, simply an empty object is created like this. Object is created. Not only everything is object in Python, you know that. When object is created, that object has some address internally. So every object has some address. And this address is assigned to this, which one? To this variable item. So this is item, right? Item one. And so what happens here? So whatever address is created here, the address of object, this is stored inside this reference variable item. So this 100 is assigned to item. Got it, right? Now item is referring to this item, whatever that is there here, it is referring to this object. Got it, right? So this object has external reference. Now, but at this stage, when this just object is created, this is empty. Okay. Now, what do you do? After that, you are calling this set item. So on this object, we have two methods that are being applied. What are those two methods? One is set item. Okay. The second method is what is it? Get item. Set item sets data to the object. It declares and initializes instance members inside object. Get item, it just fetches data from the object. And simply speaking, object is a mini database. Simply speaking, object is a mini database which holds data. Now see here, when set item is called on this object, you can see here. So what is that you are doing? Line 2. What is line 2 here? Line 2 is item 1 dot set item. Okay, when you do this, what happens now? So this method is called, what this method will be doing? This method here in the code, if you see, when each line is executed here, suppose line 10 is executed, then this variable is declared and it is stored inside object. Now you can see here. So when line 1 is executed inside set item, okay, then you can see here name is created inside object. What is created? Let me just, yeah. So you can see here a name is created inside object. Now you have name here. Okay. Similarly, when line 2 is executed here, inside here, I mean this line, second line, price is executed, then that price is stored inside object again. So first name, what is name here? So name is bolts. So item name is bolts. So it stores that, it creates that variable inside this object. Similarly, when line 11 is executed, it creates price inside this object. So something like this. So now it puts that price, whatever you have assigned here, 10. That 10 is put into this. Okay. Similarly, when line 12 is executed, then it creates quantity inside object. I'm just giving you a detailed postmortem at memory level. What is the quantity here? 100. That 100 is placed into this. Now you can see this. This gives you a very bigger picture. And this is very clearly we are seeing everything. Now, if you see this, this object is holding data, data of instance variables. In fact, it is something like this. Each object is like one row in a table. So, very useful information. What is that? Each object is like, what is it, friends? One row in a table. You know, table, right? Database table. So, even table is a kind of a class. If you think table is a class and each row is one object. So how many ever objects is created, that many rows you can assume inside database. And this instance variables, you can consider them as column names. This is simply speaking, if you compare this with some database, what is that? If you compare this with some database, simply speaking, so item will be a table. Okay. What is that? Item acts as a table. And each object you create, right? Each object here we create acts as one row. And every instance variable acts as a column name. So instance variable, if you compare it with database, instance variable is nothing but one column name in database because you are already working on that Snowflake database, everything, DBT, all that, right? You know, I heard from Shiva sir. So I'm just giving you a mapping. Even this mapping happens in Java, all this through Hibernate. Even in Python, I think they do object mapping with some ORM tools. I don't use that because I am not a web developer. I'm an automation engineer. But generally, even that kind of thing exists. So here, whatever one instance variable is nothing but equal to one column name. Okay, in database. You can just write like this. Okay, one column name in database. So in this object, we have three instance variables, means we have three columns. It is like creating as simple as a table like this. Let me just show you. It is like creating a table like this, right? With how many columns, sir? With three columns. So let me just make it more simple for you. So something like this. It is something like name and something like price, something like what is it? One more is quantity. This makes more sense, right? And under that, each object you create is nothing but one row. You create one object, you create one row. Two objects, two rows. Three objects, three rows. And this is how it works. Got it right, friends? So this is a bit of more deeper introspection of class scenario. So what is happening here? What is object here? Each object is like a mini database. Simply speaking, objects hold data. A very important point is what is this? Again, another useful information. What object has friends? Object hold data. So these are like temporary data capsules inside at in object oriented programming. That's why object OOP has that much of importance in real time. Got it right? Why? Because once you create class and you create objects, each object is a data capsule. Each object holds one item information here. If you want to have multiple item information, create multiple objects, right? So when set item is called, so when each line in that set item is called, one variable is created inside object. Likewise, three variables are created because in this program, in set item, we just declared only three variables. Leave about this is local variable, and this is just used inside that only that method. But other methods are what? They are instance variables and they are created inside object. So this is what happens. When all those three lines, that instance variables, all that three instance variables are executed. So three variables are created in this object. So that's what set item does. Next, once what we call get item. What get item do? When you call get item, item dot get item, then it try to print each value from the object onto monitor. Suppose this is monitor. So whatever, each time we print this one, it gets one value from object and prints onto the console. Something like first time we get volts, and second print executed, it prints some 10, and third time print executed, it prints quantity some 100, something like this. So that's what get item does. Just simply fetch data from the object and display that onto the console. And this is what happens inside the object thing. So this is a much more deep diving into the concept of what is it. So this object and classes. This is much interesting, right? See there. So this is beauty of object-oriented programming. Got it right, friends? So that is the idea. Just a minute, friends. Let me put my phone into silence. Got it right, friends? Next. So that's the idea. So what do we do right now? So you can take multiples, you can take some examples and create class and object concept. So, but what I am doing is I am taking another scenario. What is that scenario? Let's create, you can take any example. It's not like we should have only just item. Do one thing, add one more method. Let's add some. So DEF, I'm adding one more. I want this item details. So what based on items, right? Number of items, a quantity of items. I would like to know how many quantities are there and what is the price. So that's what I would like to do here. Okay, so I have 100 quantities and I would like to get price of these items. So get, okay, I'm just adding a method. See here, this is how we define instance methods, get total, okay, price. So how do you get the total price? Simple, right? If you want total price, quantity into that price gives you total price, right? So now simply you can add a logic here. What is that logic? So price equal to, okay. Otherwise add total price equal to, you can just say that price, you have to say here self dot. If you want this to be inside object, add as self dot price, and otherwise if you want to just it make it some, you want to get that price and quantity and put it into some local variable and return it, you can also do that. It's up to you. Do you want it to be part of object, or just you want to get that price and quantity and do some calculation and assign that result to some local variable and just return that, and this method performs some calculation just using that for somewhere in further process, you can just make this as local. Or you want still that to even this also to be part of object, then declare this as self dot total price. Then this goes into object. Else this becomes local way, just a local variable where uh, we are using it to hold or store that result, whatever we are doing calculating here, to hold that calculate the total result. So we can take a local variable here. Okay, this is how it's up to you. Depends on your requirement. You can choose how you want to proceed. It's up to you, friends. Okay. So now here self dot price, self dot another one is a quantity. So we created both. Now what do you do here? Self dot. I am adding this to the object for time being. Again, we will just remove that. Now you can see finally I did a calculation. So what I do, I already, when I say self dot, it automatically gets added to object. But make sure if this result should be added to object, you must and should call this total get total price. Then only this variable gets added to the object. And also if you should access this price and quantity, before that set data must be called. There is a dependency. Observe this carefully, friends. If this variable should exist, before that this method should be called. Then these variables are created inside object, and so that we can happily call them here. So make sure you follow that order when you are having this kind of dependencies. Got it right, friends? So finally, this is the idea. Now what do you do? We call set item, we call get item. So suppose I want total price, then what I can do? I have to say get item one dot get total price. This gives me the total price of all quantities. We have 100 quantities, 100 into 10,000. That should be the total price of all quantities or all items. Okay. So finally, what is that you do? This just only adds that data to the object here. Suppose now run this. So if you want that again that result, do one thing. Then get item, don't add there. You can, of course, even if you add there, nothing happens. It's about calling the order. Just do one thing. You can also do one thing here. Here you can say self dot total price. Call that total price here. Now you do one thing. Make a small change. First, get call set item, and then call get total price. Okay. And finally, what call? Finally, call item one dot get item. So finally, you get total, even that total price is also included inside object. So that once after that you call get item, we get details of all variables, all instance variables. Okay, now run this now. Let's run this. You don't need debuggers now. You can remove all debuggers. Right click, run this. Now you can see maybe a small correction here is. So what is it? The total quantity. Right, you can just add total quantity is. Now run this now. Now this is perfect. So there is a slight correction. I just added, I should say into, right? So that self dot quantity into self dot price. Maybe let me make it much more better. Self dot price gives us quantity. Just right click, run this. You can see 1000. Perfect. Okay, making this as a bit float is good always for us. Okay, right click, run this. So perfect. Right. This is the idea, friends. This is how you can keep on improving this class scenario. We can break down methods and keep adding variables or logic or calculations. Whatever you think that is needed inside class, you do that through methods. Finally, you got this clarity, right? So this is how you have to play around classes and objects. So that's all about class and object. I am sharing this code base with you. Let me share this. Hope you got a broad view of what is class, what is object. Now, there are few questions. Let me ask these quick questions to you. So it helps you to get a little bit more deeper. It's like quick testing to us. We are not actually doing anything here. And these are few important inputs for us. We know all this because we had already discussed this. I believe I am repeatedly I am using same statements and again because this terminology you have to sink into the mind, friends. That's why I'm repeating again and again. Once you get that, then we don't need to repeat. Okay, so you can see here. So we must define instance variables inside a function using keyword self, right? That is very clear. Even instance methods we declare with self. Anything you see with self are instance members and they are part of object. Okay. So that is idea. Next, this is already clear. This is analysis of Python program. So what is this? We just had discussed all these points, and I just you know documented all those steps step by step here. Whenever we create an object, it has a unique address. That's true, right? When we create object, an object has a unique address, and it has already a reference name here. So that is important. So next after that, the address of object is initialized to a variable, right? What is that variable? We call it as a reference variable. So this variable, that item one, this one, right? This is a reference variable. And next, variables inside object are called instance variables. We had discussed that, right? All these variables, whatever you see here, this name, this price, this quantity, these are all instance variables because these are inside object. Next one, instance variables are declared inside a function using self keyword. That is true, right? In program, what we are doing, we are declaring instance variables using self keyword. I'm just quickly recapping, that's all, summarizing what we had discussed so far. And again, a function declared using inside class keyword. Sorry. Okay, fine. I I do. So function declared inside class. So there is a slight thing unnecessary typo added. Inside class using keyword self as parameter are called as instance functions. That we already know that. You should be synced with that statements. Instant functions operate on objects. That's what we are doing, right? You can see here this set item, this get item. Both work on object to do something on objects. Okay. Finally, what is that? Why we need objects? This is another question. So generally, people talk about all this. They create class methods, they create objects, all that. But the question is why objects? Why we need objects? Already, with this analysis, you by now you should be knowing what is the need and necessity of objects, right, friends? So can you answer this question now? Why we need objects? Object holds data of a product, data of your class or whatever it is. Okay, simply speaking, whatever product or item or anything, it objects holds data. In one word, object holds data. For example, if it is car, object holds car data. If it is customer, it holds customer data. If it is item, it holds items data. So that is the idea, friends. Got it right. So now creating multiple objects for a class. Next scenario. What is it? Let's create multiple objects for a class. How do you create it? Simple, right? So let's do one thing. Let's take same thing here. We created one object. So we got one object details. Okay, let's create one more object. Copy this. Suppose I want one more item information. But if you create one item object, then it gives you one item information. If you create two objects, means you are trying to create two item details. Okay, but this time you are hard coding data. We change that. But for now, we get both objects. So we are trying to create multiple objects, and this we are creating two bolt items. So how many items are created? Two items, and here both items are bolts. No change in that. If you want to make some change, if you want to create multiple items, first time bolts, second time nuts, third time some other iron items you can take, or something else otherwise, some bag, fourth time some book. If you want to create multiple items, no, sorry, then you have to do a parameter passing. That is much more efficient approach. But now I created multiple objects. When we create multiple objects, for each object stores one item information. What is it? So when you just adding a small statement here. So when we create multiple objects, what happens here? When we create multiple objects, what happens? Each object stores one item information. Okay, item information. Likewise, if you want to store multiple items information, then what you can do, you can create multiple objects. Okay. So what shall now I created two items. Run this now again. So just make this as item two and item two, item two, item two. Now run it again. But this time, of course, you get same data. We change that after this. We add another scenario, parameter passing, so that you can pass separate data for each object, a different data for different objects. Or we can set up a different data for each object. Okay. Now run this now. And this probably produces same, both objects are bold objects with same details. You can see here. But this is not something what we expect when we are doing development. The idea is every time we create one item object, it should store one item information. And that item should change. Suppose even if it is bolt, that size of bolt should change, dimensions of bolt should change, all that. Got it, right? So in such cases, this is not always a recommended approach because we are hard coding values. Generally, this hard coding is not recommended. What do? We use, so if you want to set, suppose you created three objects. If you want to set a different data for each object, then implement parameter passing inside this method. What is that we should do? We have to apply parameter passing. So what is that I do? I declare three local variables here. So now I'm changing this approach. Now I created multiple objects, but this is not really that much helpful scenario. Why? Because both objects are using almost same data. That is not much helpful for me to my project. So what is, and this is more of duplication. This is a redundant data inside object. I don't want this. I want each object to have to store different inputs, different data. Then what is that I do? First, I have to change my design of this class. I should change my method to parameterized method here. So the set method, whatever is there, change to a parameterized. You can remove this for now, unnecessary confusion. Later on, I will talk about all this. How many local variables I should declare? Local variables you declare either in the parentheses or inside method or local. Local means they are just visible only within that method and they are not visible to any other method directly. Okay, such variables are local variables. And the lifetime of local variables is nothing but as long as this method is exist inside stack. So till that local variables exist in memory. I'll talk about that again, execution flow of methods as well, so that you get much more bigger idea. Fine now. So what is the change in design we should do? If I want more better approach of adding data, so you have to change this to parameterized method. How many parameters I should declare? Three parameters, one for name, one for price, one for quantity. So what is that I should do? For name, I directly declare a local variable name. For price, I declare local variable price. And for quantity, okay, I declare a local variable quantity. Okay, so you can see that three instance variables. To initialize them, I am declaring three parameters. Now what do I do? So I just remove this comment for now. So here the idea is what? Initializing instance variables with parameters. I assign name to self.name. There is definitely a difference between instance and local variables. All variables declared with self are instance and these variables goes into object. And we are initializing these instance variables through parameters. Got it right, friends? And this is much more recommended approach because this approach helps us to set each object with different data. Got it right? So now next one. set price to self dot price, set quantity to so self dot quantity. Maybe you can ask me, so, Manoram, you are trying to declare same names for local and instance. Why don't you give some different names for local, different names for instance? This is a standard practice people follow in development trends. So while initializing instance variables with these parameters, people define both names almost same, but only difference is we can clearly see the difference. Left side should be instance, right side should be local or parameterized variables. So this is clearly visible here. We can see that clear differentiation here. So this is how we should do set parameter passing to a method inside a class. Now, once we change this design, this helps us in a better way of creating objects and adding data. Got it right, friends? So what do you do this time? See, so I'm calling set item. This time item one, you can give any item, something like we took bolts first time, and then you can just take price. Make sure you are following the order here. For name, pass name. For price, pass price. For quantity, pass quantity. Don't get mixed up, friends. So now I am passing boards and some 10 and my quantity is 100. Perfect. These are positional parameters. I had discussed same thing while discussing about functions topic. Here order is very important. If you don't want to follow order, use keyed parameters. You can use keyed parameters. Similarly, next after that. So here, second time I created another object, right? Now you change your item name. So item name, I'm just naming this, it as pencil, okay, instead of bolts. And then price of pencil around some 20 rupees, comma, quantity of pencils, I just take some 200. Okay. So if you want, you can make this as a float value. It's up to you, friends. Okay. See, this time, see, you are able to pass. Okay, you are able to initialize each object with different data. For item 1, you are initializing with one item. For item 2, you are initializing with some other item and with some other price and some other quantity. So this helps us, this change in this design helps us to efficiently create objects and set data. Got it right, friends? So now you see, now if I run this time, run it now. So you can see here, we got two different items details here in the output. The first one definitely is covering bolts, and the second one you can see it's covering pencil here. You can see some 4,000 rupees. And altogether we are getting a different data here. Got it right, friends? Similarly, what you can do, if you want, you can create much. I just showed you how to create multiple objects, two objects, and set data for two different items. Similarly, you can try for creating some 10 objects or 100 objects and then set data to all these objects and see how it works. So I hope this is clear for all of you. Let me copy it and share it to you. So this is another scenario. Interesting, right? So next after this is, let me just share to you. Yeah, we did get that. Now, another useful scenario which you should apply with OOP. So we discussed all this. This is fine. Creating objects is fine, and then set data is fine. We did all that. So this is about showing about static variables and our class variables. So static or class variables are same, friends. There is a slight change between static methods and class methods. And this is something which I think I forget to talk about it in when I forget to talk about this while discussing functions. Now I introduced three things here. So far, two things inside a class. What is that? We had discussed instance variables, local variables. I have to talk about static or class variables and then static methods and class methods. Okay, before that again, one more scenario. What is that scenario? Simple. array of objects. How do you create array of objects in Python? One more useful scenario for you friends. It's not just we create, what is it? Just one, two objects. Sometimes we need to create some 100 objects, 1,000 objects, or 10,000 objects, 1 lakh, 1 crore objects, something like that. You got it right, friends. So you get a lot, huge a data set from in the form of Excel, and you have to load all that, read each row and convert to object, and then store into this into some kind of database, like doing some mapping, all that. Got it right, friends. So, how next scenario is we just quickly cover a topic of what is that array of objects, as we are already familiar. Okay, so array of objects. So, how do you create array of objects here? Simple, right? So, you take you can simply create like this, friends. Let me just show you another useful scenario. We can include. I'm just refining the same program. Anyhow, I shared, and we are actually getting that once after we make change every time. So I'm just making change on the same one. Or otherwise, let's create one more program. What's wrong in that? So here, array of array of objects. How do you create it? Just copy this same code. We just remove that last part and do some change there. So remove this one. Now, so I just removed that comments. Now we already know all that what we are doing. So creating array of objects. How do you create array of objects? In Python, we use list generally for to do this, some items equal to. So items list equal to. Okay, just take empty object. So now to this we have to. So what shall we do now? We have to, just a minute, friends. So there are different ways. So we don't dynamically provide number here in Python. Okay, just a minute. Let me. There is something else. Let me remove all this stuff. Okay. Sharing back again, see, friends. Now, just quickly checking how to create array of objects. If it is Java, we just use that number and initialize it. But here we can try using list, and then we can assign each object to the list, something like that. But okay, let me just see in Python. Okay. Yeah, same like how we did this fellow created like this, and then he set it, and see, this is just adding objects to a list, that's all. So this approach, anyhow, we can do that, not a big deal. They're not an issue. So if he is following same approach, then we apply that. So one approach is this, friends. So same thing, what we are doing here. So what is this guy is doing is just creating item one equal to something like item, and then similarly is creating one more. Okay, item two equal to item, and then simply what is this guy doing is item listed. Sorry, item listed dot append of item one. That is one thing. Similarly, this is another way of adding objects to the array. Item two, something like this. Now these are empty objects. Whatever we added to this item list are empty objects. Now we should set data. How do you set data? Simple, right? For item in item list. So simply you can do this with the loop approach. So item dot set item of again this data should be dynamically created now. So what we do is we do one thing. So prompt user to input from keyboard. So first name equal to so input, because if you give same static initialization, what happens then same data is added for all objects. That is not the idea. Each object should have a different should have data for different items. So do a dynamic initialization. If it is real time, we try to load from some data sets. Every time we try to create object, we try to call data from data set and put it into that this set item method. But it's okay. Let me just so one is this one, then price, just set price equal to so some float of, I'm converting that value to float of what is it input. I'm not adding anything, just directly just adding. If you want, you can just add. So for name, you ask for name, for price, you ask for price. Okay, just put it in quotes. That is important. And third one, what is third one here? Quantity, right? For quantity equal to again float of input of some, you can just say quantity. That's all, friends. So what do you do right now? Now you can pass this dynamic values. So every time it loop runs, it asks to add input these values from the user. So that is much more efficient approach when you do this kind of loop processing. Okay, name, price, then quantity. Okay, Control C, Control V. So that's it now. Now you can finally, once you do this setting, then what is that you can do item dot on that item you can call get item. Okay, sorry, get total price, you call this, and at the end if you want to display data, because in real time just calling or displaying data is not actually our end goal. So setting data and doing some calculations and using it somewhere in subsequent operations would be the process. Okay, but here as we are in learning stage, we are trying to get that data and see what would be the output. Okay, so here we are reading this from keyboard, reading data from keyboard. That is one thing. Okay, next after that is we are calling methods of class. So calling methods, instance methods of class. You can just add this kind of comments, methods of class. Okay, that's all. Now run this program. We just created. Even I think you can also create object through loops. You can create multiple objects and just store that inside the list itself. You can also do that. Okay, no problem. Run this now. Name, it's asking for name. So you can take some pencil. So the first item is pencil. Okay, and then price of pencil, you can give some 5 rupees. Quantity, some 20. Okay, let it be like that. Now you got output for this item. Next, again, it's asking for second item. Again, I took pen, price of pen some 200, and then quantity of pen some 50. Okay, so got it right. So that's it. So you can see we are able to dynamically what we are doing. We are using a list and adding list or adding object to the list. Now, when you print list also just for testing purpose, before this, you can do one thing. You can print what is that this item list here. So run this now. So you can see that two objects are created. You can see this is item one object, this is item two objects. And addresses definitely change from one to other because they are different objects. They are not same here. If you see here, so first one is having different address. You see, this is the address hexa. This is something in hexadecimal. So this is the address of object. First object. This is the address of second object. Definitely you see some change here. Okay, both are not same. So that's what when you add objects to list, this is how objects are stored inside list. Now again, you can add some more items. So items, now we do use some eraser. Okay, and then some 10 rupees and then some quantity, some 10 quantity. Okay, something like this. Similarly, you can add one more. What is it? Something like bag, and then price some 300 or something. Okay, and quantity some 10. Okay, something like this. So this is how you can work on this friends. You got it right. Once we set this data, that data will be there. Generally, the idea is just to set and add this calculation. That's all. So this get part, if you want, we can call it, or we can call it whenever we want it. So we already did this, right? We do one thing now. So I just commented get method here. So now I'm just programmatically calling prints here. So whatever we do this prints here, I'm calling them. So how I am calling, see, this is again a different approach. How to call variables of object outside that object, right? How, not object, sorry, outside that class. Okay. So one approach inside class, we can call instance variables in any method. Suppose I can call variables of set item, instance variables declared in set item and get item by using self. Throughout class, anywhere you can call this instance members with self keyword. They are accessible anywhere within that class. But if it is outside class, right? How to access them? We can't use self if it is outside class. Within class, you can access instance variables or instance methods anywhere using self keyword. Got it right, friends? Sir? But outside class, how do I call that instance members using your reference? What is that I should apply? Your object reference here. See this. Understood now? So now what is that I should do here? Now see this. I cannot apply self. My references are there inside this list object. So what is the list item? Suppose I want to call data of this one, item 0 dot name. So if I want to call data from first object, then first object is in 0th index, second object is in first index. You can see there, right? So how do I call? I should use index to call variables from first object. Or otherwise, if I should call variables from instance with data from second object, then I should use list item of 1. Let's try this now. Instead of self, you have to use external reference. So, and we try to store that references inside list. So you can say that list of 0 dot name. Again, let's try this now. 0 dot price, 0 dot quantity, 0 dot total price. Okay, let's see this now. Okay, let's run this now. Let's give a try. Run this. Of course, it is asking data. Enter data. So something like, again, some 10 I'm giving. Give anything. It's up to you, friends. Okay, I'm just giving some 10 and then quantity some 5. Okay, again, some. You can see this time it is continuously taking inputs. This is much more better approach, right? We'll just work out on that. Not a big deal. Then something like, okay, shoe. And then something like some 1,000 rupees and something like price quantity, just take some 12. That should be fine. Now you see, I'm calling this on first object. I got pen details. Suppose you see here, and you can also iterate it. It's not like you should do it like this with multiple prints. Now you can apply an iteration on that and then call that. Not a big deal. Just showing you different ways of playing around data by calling methods, by calling variables directly like this. Just showing you. Okay. So this one. Similarly, you can call data for second object, saying item one of name, item one of price, quantity, one of total price, something like this. Now again, if you run this, it has to input two item details. Just give something like some pencil or anything. I'm just giving you one by one, some 10 or some 10. Again, eraser. Okay. And then some prices, some 5 rupees, and then quantity, some 100. Now you can see there. Similarly, we are trying to get from list and then calling this instance members. We are trying to access object from list and invoke instance members on that object. That is one way. Another way is you can directly use this. So once initialization happens, once that data object is set with data, using this external reference, you can directly call either a method or either a variable. I mean, which is set inside that object. But if you should call variable inside object, before that, this set data method and get, these two methods should be called set item and set get total price. They must be called. Got it, right? Then only object is set with that instance variables. Got it, right, friends? This is the overall idea about how you play. We have so much of coverage here. If you see, what is that we learned in this session is we try to understand more, have a more deeper introspection. That is one thing. Second thing is we try to understand how to create classes, how to add little bit calculation. And then also we discussed how to create multiple objects and how that object data is set inside objects. What if you use static initialization? How that objects have same repeated data? That is also we have seen. So how did we change that approach by using parameterized methods? And then apart from that, again, what is that we see? We also used how to add objects to a list, right? And then we have seen how to play around that set data with that set methods and get total price. And finally, how to invoke exclusively this variables from instance variables from an object, right? How to display that as well without just method. How can we directly access instance variables outside class? If it is inside class, we know that how do we access? If it is outside, how can we access instance variables as well? So we have all around different use cases. We try to cover many use cases here. Okay, I'm just sharing this code also with you. So just have it for your reference. Tomorrow I'll talk about static variables and then class variables. Static or class is same. We don't have different class variables. We have static methods and class methods, almost same. We'll talk about that and also global variables and globals methods. One more, that is also important, useful for you. Okay, because I used this sometimes when I was working in some kind of coding. Okay. And this is actually a useful approach. We'll talk tomorrow. We are already running out of time today. So this is for today. Hope this is one more fruitful session on classes and objects, friends. Definitely, these are all something really useful for us. Okay.